everyone, and welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. Once more, dear friends, let us go into the breach. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear friends, let us go into that breach. So we got, we always say that that the left serves up big platters for us to sink our teeth into. Platter's pretty big tonight. It's actually 2 ribeyes on this platter tonight. We got some, as always, we're going to start out with some quick hits of the week and then go into our main segments. But we want to give our shout out, as always, to all of you who support us every week, who come live, who share the show with others. Joe Campo over in Brooklyn, Jonathan Ross with HolyFaith Media up in Toronto, Canada, who picked us up. We're growing, and it's going to just continue to go up from here because we are American men who are speaking the truth and speaking it boldly, and we really don't care. We really don't care what the left has to say. They're lying. We're telling the truth. We're exposing their lies. And let's face it, they can't stand it. They can't stand us, and they can't stand you, and they can't stand anybody out there who's doing the same thing. So we're going to continue marching along. Oh, yeah. All right. As as the saying goes, we're going to march along and keep going into the breach every single Sunday on Facebook Live at 8 o'clock sharp. So what do we got going on there, Joe?
And also special thanks to Jonathan Ross of HolyFaith Media out of Canada. He helps us out every week. And also Joe Campo with Grassroots Films out of Brooklyn. We could not do it without you guys, and I sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart. We're here every Sunday at 8 o'clock, so please join us and tell a friend. So let's go to...
Very quickly.
Okay.
If only because of Facebook, and it's happened only a couple of times. We've done over 20 videos now. It's only happened twice. If, in fact, you're live, and if, in fact, the show cuts out, stay right where you are. We're going right back into the show, and then we'll edit it later for YouTube and everything else. But as far as the live show, we get cut off. We're going right back into the conversation without a hitch. Sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. We're going to go to Chicago. I always like to follow the shooting spree in Chicago because no one does. We covered it last weekend. There were 26 people shot and 6 dead. We predicted there would be 50 over Labor Day. Thank God it didn't reach that number. There were 35 shot and 7 killed. Once again, people are getting killed in Chicago. The mayor, her name is Lori Lightfoot. She continues to blame the GOP with regard to their push to maintain gun rights throughout the country. I think it's a lot deeper than that. I think everyone agrees. There's also a very good article on Fox that came out today stating how people, and I posted it on our Frontline page, how most of the young men come from broken homes who are committing these crimes, and they're broken people.
But that's got nothing to do with it, of course. No, being from a broken home, not having a father, not getting slapped in the face once in a while when you're a young hooligan and have a father that gives you a smack and punishes you. That's got nothing to do with it. That influence, that disciplinary influence is not in the home. So again, we've spoken about it before, substituting fathers with gangs, because that's where you're being affirmed in your, let's call it manhood, all right? But it's a distorted sense of what men do. Men don't go around shooting people, but this is the culture they grew up with because they don't have fathers. And that is promoted, Mrs. Mayor, by your party. You don't like fathers. You don't like men. You call it toxic masculinity. When a father acts as a father and disciplines particularly his son and says, you will not do this or you will not do that. You say society doesn't need that. Well, take a look at your city and stop blaming everybody else. We are not allowing you to blame us or Donald Trump or the GOP or Ted Cruz or the NRA or anybody else. It's you and your policies and the policies of your party that have led to this through the destruction of the family. That is the underlying cause of all this, the destruction of the American family, particularly in the black community. And you as a woman of color should be a little sympathetic towards that argument because you know it to be true. So stop blaming everybody else. In the meantime, what do you say? Sadly, it's just going to continue. It's just going to continue.
And I invite you to follow it yourself because like I said, every weekend It's double-digit numbers, people getting shot, and many times it's more than 10 people getting killed. We're going to go to Ohio. We'll go from Chicago to Ohio. 26-year-old woman enters an abortion mill in Ohio. Next day, she's found dead. Give you some background on the young woman. She was in her first trimester. She was carrying twins. Her name was Tia Park. She was a black woman. She had a life-threatening condition. It was undiagnosed in the clinic, and she was dead the next day. They always talk about back alley abortions. They're going on legally.
Right. Because, and why do you say that? Why is it appropriate to say that that is the exact same thing as a back alley abortion that we're all supposed to be so afraid of with this fascist Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade? You don't want to place any restrictions whatsoever and any standards whatsoever on Planned Parenthood because you don't want to hurt their business, because they give you money and they help you to get elected, and you let them do whatever they want. We've said it before. Their health and safety standards in a Burger King are higher than they are in Planned Parenthood. This woman should have been checked out. She was 300 pounds, number one, okay? She had an existing condition that went undiagnosed because they don't care about diagnoses.
Was it a Planned Parenthood clinic?
I'm not sure if it was, but they're all the same. Let's
in
face
fairness
it.
to them, but I just find it's still a legal clinic.
That's right. It's a legal clinic where they did no background. This woman had an abortion, and I think she died of excessive bleeding due to damage to her fallopian tubes, which obviously happened in Planned Parenthood. Now, let's see, okay, let's see if there's going to be an investigation into her death. My guess is no.
Nor is it covered anywhere, by the way. This is not covered anywhere.
Well, they only want to talk about abortion as being a constitutional right and blah blah blah. It's their pagan sacrament. We talked about this as being all the Democratic Party represents neo-paganism. I don't care who calls himself a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian. It's neo-paganism. That's what the Democratic Party represents. Okay, abortion is one of their central gods. You don't remember the Greeks? You know, the Greek pagans, they had a pantheon of gods. Okay, there was Zeus. There was, all of them. Hera, Poseidon, okay? And then the Romans had theirs. But in the pantheon of the neo-pagan gods is abortion. It doesn't have to be like, let's say, a god that you say looks like a man. It could be a thing. Just like in Israel, in the Old Testament, they had statues of false gods. Well, abortion is a false god. Okay, the same with contraception, the same with the rest of it. So given that abortion is a god, you can't question God. You can't question gods, of course, okay, because they're gods. And you can't question abortion. So when the state of Texas, when that sneaker-wearing blondie broad in Texas, Wendy Davis, I think her name was, big champion of abortion, my life wouldn't be where it is if it wasn't for abortion, okay? The big brouhaha about that was that Texas wanted to impose health and safety standards on Planned Parenthood and other abortion clinics. And these people got up in arms. What's the problem? Joe just made the best point. Do you want them to look like back alley abortions? Because this black woman dying in a Cleveland abortion clinic looks an awful lot like a back alley abortion to me. The difference is Joe and Joe didn't chase her into that clinic. You did. But then you don't want to bear responsibility for it. It's disgusting.
Absolutely.
It's disgusting. This woman needlessly died.
And she's a young woman.
A young woman.
Carrying twins. Carrying 2 lives. All snuffed out. 3 lives snuffed out.
Right. Because
legally in America.
Because Planned Parenthood has to make its money. That's why. When they talk about corporate greed, don't look any further than Planned Parenthood.
We're going to go to Hollywood. Deborah Messing.
Do we have to?
Oh, we do.
Do we have to?
Our third quick hit of the evening. Hollywood. Deborah Messing of Will and Grace fame. I'm sure you all know of this sitcom. It was fairly popular a while ago. She made a stone-cold racist statement last weekend. Coming out of Hollywood, not covered anywhere. We're going to let you know what she did. Basically, there was a church sign in Alabama on Twitter, and this is what it read. It said, "A black vote for Trump is mental illness." On the flip side of the sign, it said, "A white vote for Trump is pure racism."
Ooh, there's a shock.
So,
I didn't know I was a racist. Go ahead.
So what Deborah Messing does is she retweets on the sign, "Thank you." So basically, she got a lot of flack for it.
Well, she's a white woman that called black people mentally ill.
And the thing I find interesting is this. She's basically telling black people how to think, which is, I think, like so condescending. That's number one. Number two, as per Rasmussen, and this is as of August 2nd of this year, 29% of Black America is supporting Trump. So Deborah Messing is basically telling almost 1 out of every 3 Black people in America that they're mentally ill.
Right.
That's what she's basically saying.
Why is that not racism?
Well,
Like, why is it that Deborah Messing is not losing her job for being a racist?
Where's Chris Cuomo?
Right, where's Chris Cuomo? Where's all the outrage on CNN? Don Lemon, where's the outrage? She just called 1/3 of, or 30% of your people, okay? You're always self-described people of color, okay? African Americans, just called 30% of your people mentally ill because they vote for Donald Trump. You either don't want to report on that, okay? Or B, you agree with her, Mr. Lemon, and the rest of you hypocrites at CNN. How dare you call the rest of us racist because we voted for Donald Trump, because he actually gives a damn about all Americans, okay? Not just groups of Americans like your party does, okay? How dare you call these people, say that they're mentally ill, and then you're going to allow her to get away with it? And I say the same thing all the time. Let's remember something. Conservative America is to blame to a degree. I love you all because we're conservative too, but we are all to blame because we support their television shows. Will and Grace should get watched by only liberals. Conservatives shouldn't watch it. Not when they say things like this. All right, and there's many other ways that we support Hollywood, okay, with our dollars, that if we ever got our heads out of our butt and say, you know what, I'm ditching Netflix, or I'm not watching Will and Grace, or I'm not watching, I'll give you a perfect example. I told my wife I don't want to watch Blue Bloods anymore because I think Blue Bloods is a false representation of a Roman Catholic family in America, okay? So I don't watch it anymore. I'm not going to watch it on reruns or whatever the case might be. I did for a while, and then I said to myself, this doesn't seem very Catholic to me. And so I stopped. Again, I'm stopping to watch that, all right? And I think we should all do that so that when the people like Deborah Messing come out and make this ridiculous statement, okay? Insulting, racist. It is racist. I'm sorry. We don't use the word racism like they do. Not everything is racist. This is racist. She just called 30% of the African-American community in America mentally ill. I never said that, but yet I voted for Donald Trump, and I'm a racist. You're a racist. In fairness to her, she put it down and apologized, but at the same time, she really wasn't put, her feet weren't put to the fire as like if a Republican was to say that. Nor will they be. Her feet will never be put to the fire. And that's basically why we bring this out. And again, no coverage whatsoever, and that's why you watch this show. We bring you stories that no one does, and this is what the Frontline with Joe and Joe is all about. Yeah, and that outrage will remain an outrage because, like Joe said, nobody in any kind of real position of influence is going to be outraged by it or say anything about it other than a couple of people on Fox News and a few people on social media and, of course, the Frontline with Joe and Joe. But shame on you, Deborah Messing. That's our final statement on that. Shame on you. And lastly, our last and fourth final quick hit is with the Democratic Party officially spurning people of faith. What do I mean by that when I say that? On August 24th of this year, the Democratic National Committee unanimously passed a resolution that formally embraced agnostics, atheists, and the religiously unaffiliated. Now, what does that say about America? It basically says, one, a country that always believed in God we trust is growing more and more secular. Mm-hmm. And they're embracing those people, and that demographic is embracing the DNC. I think that is a very un-American idea. This country was founded on God. This is why people came here. I've said this before, and I'll say it again on this show. Every single state, all 50, the preamble of every single state, the first line mentions God. Mm. The Democratic Party is the party of death, and it's also sadly becoming the party of the godless. Well, that's exactly what it is. Because let's say that, you know what they're going to say. They're going to say, well, we embrace people of faith, but we want room under the big tent of the Democratic Party also. You've pushed everybody out. Okay, Roman Catholics who used to vote Democrat don't vote Democrat anymore. There's many of them. Many. We need more. Joe and I will be the first ones to say, you're a Roman Catholic, you can't vote for this party. We're not the priest. We're not losing a tax-exempt status because we're not tax-exempt. We're saying
That's
it.
for sure.
You can't support this party. They're telling you, number one, they've told you already, the only way you'll stay in this party, if you're a Roman Catholic, and let's say you're pro-life and against gay marriage, all right, but you agree with the Democrats and other things, is that you will change your view on that. Didn't Hillary Clinton say that?
Absolutely.
She said deeply held religious beliefs need to be changed.
Dogma.
Dogma. Okay? So they've already thrown you out. Why you're still there, I don't know. You should let them become the party of the godless, and I would call the nominally religious. Like Pete Buttigieg all of a sudden wants to start quoting scripture or giving us biblical exegesis on CNN and talking about, if we don't take care of the environment, that's kind of a sin. Who are you to talk? Who are you to talk, Mayor Pete?
And also,
Okay.
Stephen Baldwin recently came out, in which I give him a lot of credit. He basically said you can't call yourself Christian and say you are for abortion.
You can. He's right.
And he's right.
There's
I'm
one.
very sorry.
I will say that to Steve. If
I'm
Stephen
very
Baldwin
sorry.
watches this video, I would tell Stephen Baldwin straight up. I would say, my man, you need to be back in the Catholic Church, my man, because we could use you. Okay. He gave up his career. I'm going to say this.
Oh, he's got stones.
He was on an A list at one point when
yeah,
Usual
yeah.
Suspects came out and some other movies he was in came out. Okay, he was an A-list actor. Okay, he converted to born again Christianity. God bless him. I don't agree with him, but nonetheless became very vocal in defense of objective moral truth and objective moral teachings. Okay, particularly on abortion, on gay marriage. Okay, he's lost his career. He's lost his career. That's balls. That's real balls. And I would tell you, Brother Steve, come back into the church because we could use you over here.
He will.
They
all come back.
They all come back. Can't stay away from Jesus in the Eucharist, man. So
now we're going to get into the big segments of the night. Like I said, there's a lot going on this week, and we had a lot to cover, and we wanted to cover all of it because I think it's very important. We're going to go to New Orleans. Drew Brees came out with a little short video this week that I think is worth noting if you haven't heard it and or read about it in the news. Basically what he was doing is he was encouraging people to share their faith by bringing Bibles to school on October 3rd of this year. The event is designed to encourage personal freedom, and religious pride. This was sponsored by Focus on the Family.
Which was his big sin.
Okay. Immediately, once he made this announcement, there was intense and absolute and utter hostility directed towards him, and I'm going to read one of the statements. NFL star Drew Brees partners with Focus on the Family to promote hate. So this is the question I want to pose to you, Joe Pasillo.
Go ahead.
Is being a Christian a stigma?
Of course it is.
Is it a death blow to your career?
Yes.
Currently in America, for all people, whether you're an NFL Super Bowl winning star or whether you work for the sanitation department anywhere in the country.
Right.
Is it a sin to say you are Christian and you believe what any Christian denomination states on the surface?
Well, let me just, I don't correct you often, but I will disagree in one case. Not all Christian denominations, because mainline liberal Protestant churches, they're all in bed with the abortion crowd, the pro-gay marriage crowd. They fly rainbow flags. They don't care. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not being so critical because unfortunately we have a lot of Catholic parishes that are doing the same thing. And this is a conversation from another day. Where are the bishops coming down on these priests? No rainbow flags in the Catholic Church. Okay. But it is a stigma. If you are, we talked about this before. I think the goal is primarily Christianity. Okay. And specifically the Catholic Church. Okay, let's be clear about that. Okay, the goal, the target is always the Catholic Church. When a non-Catholic Christian like a Drew Brees or someone like that opens their mouth, they'll be targeted for two reasons, always the same two reasons: abortion and gay marriage. And becoming more so now about gay marriage, whereas they probably know that they're losing the argument on abortion. They see the handwriting on the wall with the Supreme Court. They realize Roe versus Wade is going to get overturned. So the pro-death states are really going to a whole new extreme. Like we talked about a few weeks ago with New York, their abortion laws. There are no laws on abortion. It's basically, you want to have an abortion, it's the same thing as going to get a cheeseburger. You could just go in and order one and get one. You don't have to worry about it. So if you, as a religious person, and we covered this also with the Jews in Lakewood, New Jersey, okay? If you profess to believe in an objective moral truth, especially that truth that comes from the Bible. Now, let's face it. Again,
you're a hater.
Fundamental disagreements we have with you, Roman Catholics have with you. However, your objective moral truth comes from Scripture. Okay, the Jews get it from the Old Testament. The evangelicals and other Protestants, they get it from the New Testament. Okay, and they believe it. Drew Brees obviously believes it. Okay, that's the sin. So to answer your question, you could be Pete Buttigieg is an Episcopalian. Okay, so they have no problem with his brand of Christianity because he thinks babies could be killed right up until birth, and obviously he has no problem with homosexuality. All right, so he's the good kind of Christian. All right, but the Drew Brees type that says bring your Bible to school on Bring Your Bible to School Day, okay, and share the gospel with your friends, didn't say anything about gay marriage. Didn't even come up. All right, go look at the PSA. It's out there. Okay, and the thing I respect mostly about Drew Brees, he did not apologize because there was nothing to apologize for. Nothing to apologize for. Others have apologized. People who have said what they believe to be true, but because they're in a position of fame and fortune and their celebrity status were threatened. It happened to Kevin Hart. It happened to Tulsi Gabbard. Okay, Tulsi Gabbard came out critical of the LGBT crowd a few years ago. She was forced to walk it back. What did she do? Apologize. Kevin Hart said something that was insensitive. He was forced to apologize, and he apologized. Okay? Martina Navratilova didn't like the fact that boys were running in girls' track meets or whatever the case may be. She was forced to apologize.
Mario Lopez.
Drew Brees did not apologize.
Why should he?
He shouldn't.
At the end of the day, you believe what you believe, and it's pretty clear, to be honest with you, in the Bible. I'm sorry. It's very clear that homosexuality is a sin in the Bible. It's very, very, very clear.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And bottom line is, it's a pervasive belief across the globe. It's a pervasive belief across the globe.
But Joe, why is it a pervasive belief? Let's get into this for a second. It's a pervasive belief because all people have the ability to recognize the natural law. Okay, that's given by God. The natural law is given by God. That means it's accessible to all people, regardless of religious faith. You know what's right. You know what's wrong. That's why when you ask most people, can two men be married? They could be Hindu, Buddhist, whatever. They could do it. Well, no. What are you talking about? That's not what a marriage is. We know that by the natural law. In other words, again, this is something that's written on your heart. So that's why it's pervasive amongst different religious traditions, and in many cases, no religious tradition, okay? Because it's something that you know by nature, that it's not the same thing, okay? It is not. A man and a woman with children is not the same thing as two men or two women. It's that simple. And when you defend that position, okay, you can lose your job. And in the case of a celebrity, okay, it could amount to millions of dollars, which is obviously a big temptation. That's why we said earlier, we applaud Stephen Baldwin and others like him, okay, who have said, well, no, I'm not going to compromise my Christian worldview, my belief in Jesus Christ. I'm not doing it. This is wrong, and that's it. And he winds up suffering for it. You know, he's paid the price for it.
And what's wrong with bringing a Bible to school? What's wrong with these type of ideas? I mean, gosh, it's just like, we have just, everything that's good is now bad. It's just sad. When I read things like this, I mean, what he's basically, look what he's trying to encourage. Personal freedom, religious freedom, and religious pride. What is wrong with that?
Because the only pride that's acceptable right now is gay pride.
Clearly. I mean, clearly.
Right.
And that's the sick part. And this is where the tolerant people strike again. I have to accept you, but you will not accept me.
And you want to know something, Joe? I'll be honest with you. I don't want your acceptance, okay? We're supposed to live in a country where at the very least I'm expected to be tolerant. I don't have to be tolerant of everything you want to do. I'm not electing my local parish priest to be mayor of my town, okay? Priests are not supposed to be in positions of political or hold political office. I'm not looking for that. I wouldn't expect you to be tolerant or accepting of that. But you people don't want tolerance. You preach tolerance, but you're the most intolerant people there are.
Absolutely.
I will say this. I've said this before. I'll say it again. You point out the organized effort of Catholic men like jamokes like Joe and Joe targeting homosexuals in the street for beatdowns, harassment, bullying, or any of that. You're not going to find it. You're not going to find it. You pretend your friends in Hollywood make movies that show that, but there's no documentation of anything like that. You know you're not attacked by Catholic men. I'm talking specifically about Catholic men now, okay?
I get it.
You're not being attacked by Catholic men, and you know that. You're not every week being attacked by the bishops, the priests, and the deacons from the pulpit. You're not being attacked by them, and you know it. You simply do not accept, or you're not tolerant of the church's teaching on homosexuality. And you want it changed, and you want us to change, and you will threaten us with our jobs as they have with other people, okay? And you think that people are going to back down. The problem is unintended consequences, okay? What you don't realize is now you've caused a reaction. Now, reaction is not violent, not like your reaction. We know what your reactions could be because we saw what you did to St. Patrick's Cathedral in the 1990s, because Cardinal O'Connor, God rest his soul, wouldn't back down to you and your pressure and how you harass people at St. Patrick's Cathedral. But the reaction is, and the action is in the free marketplace of ideas. We are now speaking out against you. Now we've become intolerant of you, okay? Because of your intolerance, because of your insanity, because of your screeching and your yelling.
But the difference is we respect you. You see, you don't respect us. You see, that's the difference. We will respect you. You will not respect us, and you will not tolerate us where I will tolerate you. I will not fire somebody because they're gay, but you will fire me because I don't accept same-sex marriage.
That.
And that's the difference.
Right, and we know
that's not tolerance.
Right.
That is intolerance, and that's fascism.
Right.
I'm not the fascist. You are. And believe it. Look up the definition and think about it.
Right. And what do we always talk about? Projection. They have to call you the fascist. So the Catholic Church is always the fascist because it has all these authoritarian rules, particularly when it comes to sex. Okay. The Catholic Church is the fascist, yet the Catholic Church doesn't wield political power. Okay. In other words, it just doesn't. The Catholic Church can influence the Catholic laity and awaken us as to what we ought to or ought not to in the political arena. But the Cardinal Dolan or Tobin, not that they would, but they're not picking up the phone and talking to the governor about this issue or that issue, okay? They're not doing it. So the Catholic Church proposes, but you need to project this fascism, this totalitarianism on the church. But it's you in the meantime that are doing it, so that you will accept no dissension on this issue. Gays are allowed to be married, and that's it. We all need to accept it, and here's the most nefarious part, and this is where you're not going to win. I promise you, you're not going to win. You can't teach it to our kids, which we know is what your ultimate goal is. You know you're not changing our minds, but we do know also that you want to teach it to our children, and we refuse to let you teach it to our children, okay? And that's your biggest problem, because you figure you can't change us, but you'll get to the 3-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, the 7-year-olds in the indoctrination centers that are known as the public education system. So we know that that's what you're trying to do. And when we fight back there, then of course, then we're really fascist. So I want to protect I want to protect my child from you and your stupid worldview and your stupid way of life. I want to protect my child from that. I don't accept it.
It's a destructive way of life. Look up the life expectancy for active homosexuals in America. It's 20 years shorter than that of a heterosexual. It is not a healthy lifestyle. Why is that? Why are active homosexuals dying? They also have higher rates of drug abuse. They have higher rates of alcoholism. They have higher rates of suicide.
Right.
Why is that? Ask yourself that after you turn this show off tonight. Why is that?
And then ask yourself another question. If that's the result, and that's scientific.
That's factual.
That's factual. Okay. So if that's the very concrete result of living this lifestyle, and we have it because the statistics are there, why on earth would you think that it would be loving for me to encourage you in this lifestyle? Do I want you to be drug addicted? No, I love you. I don't want you to be drug. Do I want you to be addicted to alcohol? No, I love you. I want you to be sober. Okay. Do I want you to kill yourself? Absolutely not. Okay. I don't want this for you. So who's the loving one? Who's the hating one? And we've used the analogy before. If my best friend is sitting along the side of a cliff and says it's going to make me just a wonderfully happy person if I jump off this cliff, and the act of love is to say to that person, please come away from the cliff, because if you jump, you're going to die. Okay. The act of hatred is to tell that person, If it makes you happy, go right on ahead and do it. And that's the problem, is people tell you that if it makes you happy, go on ahead and do it. Well, guess what? I'm not going to do that because I don't want you to suffer. I don't. I don't want you to die young. I don't want you to be addicted to things. I don't want you to be depressed. Okay, Joe doesn't want that. Neither one of us want that for you. The Catholic Church doesn't want that for you. That's why we tell the truth about that lifestyle and that you need to get out of it.
Well, that's why the church says the truth, tells the truth about that lifestyle. And I'm going to tell you a little truth that you know already, but I'm going to tell you anyway. There's a very famous person. His name was Augustine in the 5th century. He's a brilliant man. Many people, not only in Catholic circles, but in like philosophical circles, have read his books. He wrote a very famous book called Confessions. Augustine was a very, very intelligent man, and he was a worldly man. He did everything. He did everything. He had a child outside of wedlock. He lived a worldly life. And he eventually came into the Catholic Church, and he became a saint. But he wrote in this book, Confessions, a very, very, very important idea, which always is with me my whole entire life. Once I read the book, and I think about it often. He basically said, the heart does not rest until it rests in thee. What does he mean by that? There is something inside of us that when we don't, it's called the natural law. It's written on the hearts of men. And that's why people who don't live according to the natural law have issues. And that's why I'm bringing this up, why people, their lifespan is shorter than people who do. Because there's something inside of you that breaks when you go against the natural law. Augustine knew this because he did for many, many, many years. He lived a very worldly life. He was a rich man. He had everything, but he had nothing. Until he figured that out. He said, the heart does not rest until it rests in thee. Think about that. Read the book, by the way. It's a classic. It's a classic. All people should read that book. But it is something that you can't avoid. It's on your heart. It's written on your heart. And you can't escape the consequences of your choices. You see, we're always free. But the consequences are assigned to the choice.
Right. They're not imposed by us. I don't make you more depressed if you suffer from a same-sex attraction or you're a transgendered person. I don't make you more depressed. I don't force the drugs into your hand. I don't force the alcohol into your mouth. We don't do this. Okay? We simply say that very clearly, look, we've done things in our lives. Everybody knows we're not picking on you. Okay? Sin is sin. Okay? And sin is a very bad thing. Joe just said any deviation from the natural law. I want to follow up on what you said, though. In other words, about where our heart is restless until it rests in thee. But what do we do in this world? Why are we suffering all these problems? Because it's always a matter of, see, remember, we've talked about the Democratic Party. They have killed God, or effectively for their own party, they've killed God. And if they get a chance, they'll kill God for the rest of you too. Not that they could kill God, but you know, attack it so viciously. But what do? What do you replace God with? Remember, Nietzsche said, that, you know, in his story about, well, what shall we do? We killed God. We killed God. And he says, well, we must now have to become gods. Well, that's what happens. Okay. But the thing is, but you need to replace the real God with something else. And then what usually but it
never ever satisfies.
It never satisfies because what it does, because it's always temporal. Okay. It comes and it goes, whether it's getting high, whether it's having sex,
money,
drugs, all of
status, whatever it is.
It comes and it goes. And that's why you could find a very outwardly looking successful person, okay, has everything and is absolutely miserable because they live contrary to the natural law. Whereas those who look to the real source of joy in their lives and peace, which is God himself, then what happens is, for those of us who have been, let's say, lived a particularly destructive lifestyle, I've always said I'm an open book. I did not live a Catholic or a holy life for 20 years of my life, or maybe even longer than that, up until about 10 years ago. So I get it. Okay, we're always reaching, we're always reaching, we're always reaching. And it took good people that made me question myself. And that's kind of what we're doing here with the whole LGBT thing that's going on. In other words, you know, with that's how we got on this conversation is, look, you're looking for something to replace the only thing that can make you happy, which is God. And like I said, most of the time it's sex, drugs, this and that. And that's why Joe brings up a very good point by bringing up Augustine. Okay, our hearts are always restless. What we need to do is look to God. Okay, and guess what? Our restlessness starts to cease. It doesn't go away right away. Okay, I'm not going to lie. Okay, there's always temptation. People fall. Nobody's perfect, and you're not looking at a couple of saints here. Okay, but the grace of God helps you to move forward.
Absolutely.
And then you shed these things, and what you do is, yes, you not only go to heaven, okay, after you die, but in this world, this very difficult life to get through becomes a lot more bearable. Okay, your crosses are a lot more bearable when you have the grace of God.
And don't take our word for it. If you haven't figured that out by now, I hope you do. But I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth, my friend.
Well, that's gospel truth, man.
That's the truth.
That's what that is. And again, if you don't believe in the gospel, what do we say? It's a matter. You don't have to look far to know the natural law. I heard one writer say, a lot of times people, let's take abortion for an example. People fall in. Many women, unfortunately, have abortions. They're lied to. Some of them are not necessarily lied to. They just don't care. Okay. And they don't need people like us or the church or anybody else to impose that guilt on them. They feel the guilt themselves. But when you feel that guilt, you have two ways to go. You either repent, okay, or you fall deeper and deeper and deeper into that particular thing. And let's say the case of abortion, that's why many women have had multiple abortions.
Or they become militant.
Or they become, you should nail ahead. Then they become militant for it, and they want you to do it too. See, that's the thing. This is you getting back to earlier what you said about tolerance, okay? Then they want, with the LGBT crowd, they have basically embraced this lifestyle. Pete Buttigieg comes to mind, and now they want it for you too. And when we say no, we don't want that. We don't want it for our kids. We don't want it in our schools, okay? We don't want it anywhere near our kids, okay? If you want me to be tolerant, but no. And they say, no, you have to accept it. That's that. You know what the old saying is? Back in the day, misery loves company. Well, we don't want to be in company, not in that kind of company. I'm not in the mood to be miserable. I made myself miserable enough myself. I don't need other people to make me miserable.
And see, this is not a politically correct conversation, but this is what this show, we're not politically correct, and this is a kitchen table conversation, and this is the truth. I'm telling you the truth. And I want to also stress the fact, we respect everyone. We love everyone. And I love you enough to tell you the truth. I will respect you. I will be your friend, but I'm not going to lie to you.
Right.
I will not lie to you. And I don't care if people call me names or call me a hater or call me whatever because of it. I'm telling you the truth. That's the truth. And it's not a loving statement to lie to somebody.
No.
You're not loving. You're not being merciful.
You're hating somebody
when you're lying to them. That's not, a father doesn't lie to his child. Doesn't do it. He tells his kid the truth. And I'm telling you the truth. We're going to go to Newark.
Let's give a quick shout out. We got a bunch of people joining. Rosa's joining. Artie, thanks for joining. Artie, Roseanne, how you doing? My baby's out there. Maria's out there. We got Joe Campo over in Brooklyn. A whole bunch of people joining right now. You're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. 8 o'clock. Sunday nights, Facebook Live, In the Breach, moving forward more aggressively tonight into the breach because there's a lot of things going on. We had a few quick hits earlier, so if you're just joining, watch the rest of the video later on. It'll be posted on Facebook. Go from the beginning because there's just so much going on out there. There's just so much going on. And like Joe said, other than a very few other places, this is a place where you're going to find the hard-hitting conversations.
And also, so if the video ever cuts out, please, Facebook sometimes gives us trouble. Just come right back in.
Stay right where you are.
We're going to come right back as well. We're going to go to Newark. There was something interesting.
Do we have to go to Newark?
We have to.
We have to go to Newark.
It's the motherland.
Yes, it is. Spawned us.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. The Resinellos landed there from Italy. Same thing with the DeLeos, the Pasillos as well. So we're going to go there. We have to go there. Anyway, Wednesday, there was a protest in Newark at the ICE office. For those of you who don't know what ICE is, it's the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office. It's been in the news, obviously, a lot during the Trump administration.
Aren't they Nazis?
Oh, of course.
I thought they were Nazis.
Of course they are.
AOC says they're Nazis. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, anyway, there was a protest in Newark regarding some policies, Trump's policies currently, because he owns them, he's the president, basically separating children from parents if the parents are found to have entered the country illegally. Now, this could potentially be someone who's been here a while, the way I understand it, and that the children are being taken from them. I want to go on record and say I am not for that. I think the president is trying to resolve that. Sadly, he's not getting much cooperation. They don't want him to get any win. I think this is something that can be resolved in this country. It's not like an abortion debate. This is not ideology. This is something that can be resolved. Sadly, it won't be and hasn't been. Obama tried it, Bush tried it, Trump tried it, all failed. Sadly, it's become a tribal and partisan issue. It's just another example of how broken our system is. And why should children? Why should children pay the price? Sadly, they're paying the price. And the article went on to say that they're suffering from post-traumatic stress, as any young child would, being taken from their parents. Well, this is not why I bring this up. I bring this up because the good Cardinal of Newark, Cardinal Tobin, Joseph Tobin, actually said something publicly, and he blessed the protesters. I say to you, bravo, sir. Bravo for getting in the breach, as we are, in our little small way. But you're a cardinal, you're a powerful man. You should be in the breach. And this is exactly what you should be doing, in my view, in my humble view. Well, where are you on the abortion issue?
Right.
Where is the leadership of the church? And I don't say all of, but a large majority of the bishops
The
and the
more
cardinals.
prominent ones.
Where are you with Catholic politicians who support abortion,
Right.
who support same-sex marriage, who are receiving the Eucharist?
Well, you pulled up the article. One of our quick hits was the Democratic Party spurning Roman Catholics. That came from an article in the Catholic League by Bill Donahue. Okay, and he listed them right out. Biden, Gillibrand, Julian Castro says I'm never very far from my faith. You are very far from your faith and your church, Mr. Castro. I'm sorry. You could call that judgmental if you want, but you're another one who doesn't believe that there should be any restriction on abortion. Leave aside from the fact that you're Catholic and you should be in the abolitionist movement, okay? But even on a political level,
But where's
you can't find any restriction on abortion that you're in favor of.
Where's
his bishop coming to say, excuse me, you are kind of far from the church. Christian Gillibrand. And this is what makes me so friggin' upset, okay? Stop moralizing to us. You are the party of death. You are the party of immorality. You embrace it all, and then you talk about, Joe Biden talks about making America moral again. Christian Gillibrand says, for me, it's really a moral issue. Like there's this whole montage going on the internet where you could see Kristen Gillibrand. Every interview she's in, she said, for me, this is really a moral issue. And there's for me, this is really a moral issue. It's always a moral issue, except when it comes to slaughtering babies, Gillibrand. Then you were just A-okay with that. No morality to be spoken of there. And of course, with gay marriage, you got no problem with that. But it's a moral issue. My problem with Tobin is, like you said, that's fine. That's fine, Cardinal. That's fine. You did a great job, just like Sean O'Malley did when Cardinal Sean O'Malley, when he went down to the border and he held mass. Why do you not take the lead of let's say, Archbishop Sam Aquila in Denver? And when I was in Denver, I met the good Cardinal. I met His Eminence briefly, but I didn't meet him. Archbishop. Okay, and I met him, and one thing I found out from some other Catholics there is Archbishop Aquila, His Eminence, joins the pro-life prayer warriors in front of Planned Parenthood, and they circle around Planned Parenthood whilst praying the rosary. Ergo, he's blessing those people too. So I got no problem if you wanna highlight that, but you're being selective because first of all you've promoted, and we all know this, Cardinal told me, you've promoted the homosexual agenda twice now with two overtly gay masses at the Cathedral Basilica of the Sacred Heart in Newark. Okay, you basically promoted it, you sanctioned it. Okay, rather than calling people to repentance like we all are as Catholics, you welcome them in, which is fine, but did not call anybody to repentance. Okay, not once. So you did that twice. Okay, you never say boo about abortion. I tried calling. I said last week I was going to call the Archdiocese about our beloved governor, Phil Murphy? Phil Murphy, scary looking dude, man. Scary looking dude. He's going to sign legislation that's going to come and drop the hammer on you, Cardinal Tobin, and the church in New Jersey, forcing you to pay for abortifacient drugs and everything else. Where are you on these issues? Because I didn't get a call back from the Archdiocese. I told our audience last week that I was going to call. I called. I left a detailed message. They knew exactly what I was calling about. I identified myself as Joe Pasillo from the front line with Joe and Joe. Okay, and I wanted to know if there was any statement. It was very respectful. Is there any statement that the Cardinal has made or is going to make about this atrocity that Governor Murphy is going to sign into law? Nothing.
Nothing.
Didn't hear a word. But I have to then, Joe sends me the articles we're going to be talking about this week, and then I blow a gasket at what he sends me because I see that Cardinal Tobin's got a lot to say about immigration. Your Eminences, spare us.
And here's the thing. Religion is not political in the sense that no party is perfect. No party is in line with, from our purposes, the Catholic teaching. However, there are issues that weigh heavier because they either affect life or society directly. The bishops call them intrinsic evils. Same-sex marriage, abortion, embryonic stem cell research,
Contraception,
cloning, and euthanasia.
right?
These are intrinsic evils.
I said contraception. I was wrong about that.
Those are the five.
Those are the
Those
five.
are the five. And now other ones you could use your prudential judgment on. Meaning, like, I could have a view. I'll just make an example of, say, the minimum wage versus your view. And we could have a discussion,
Right.
but it's not an intrinsic evil. I could have economic reasons why I don't think it should be raised without having true economic growth, and you could have a reason why it should. And we could have a healthy discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to life, when it comes to affecting marriage, which affects all of society because it's the single cell of society, that is an intrinsic evil. And this is where the church must speak out. And by the way, we're the church. Just like Cardinal Tobin is a church, he's higher up on the food chain. We are baptized. We have to speak out. We do that, obviously, how we vote. But we also do that by vocalizing our opinions.
That's right. Getting it out there.
This is what we do.
Right.
This is what we should do.
Right.
We're called to do. By the way, the church used to be called, actually it still is called, it's just ignored. You have three levels of the church. The church triumphant in heaven, the suffering church, which is in purgatory, and what's the third level?
The militant.
What does that mean? That means there's sin in the world, we are in the world, and we're going against the grain of the world. If you're going along with the world, believe you me, my friend, you're not on the side of God.
No.
You are not on the side of God.
Well, what are they using now? What's the big line they're using now? Well, you're on the wrong side of history. Well, first of all, we're not on the wrong side of history. Second of all, whether or not that's the case, I'd rather be on the, I guess Jesus Christ was on the wrong side of history too, because he got nailed to a cross. So we really don't care about being on the wrong side of history. But I do want to mention something about what you brought up about intrinsic evils. Okay, separating families is not intrinsically evil. Oh, I could hear the liberal brains exploding out there. Okay, in this state, amongst mostly liberal leftist people who run the social, what do you call it? The child and family services in this state. Okay, all run by liberals. Okay, all run by leftists. Okay, that's it. They separate families every day. They pull mothers or they pull children out of their parents' homes every single day for a variety of reasons. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not. Because some of these kids need to be pulled out of these homes. The mother's a prostitute, the father's a drug addict, whatever, alcoholic, whatever the case. It's a dangerous situation. They separate families all the time because the parents have broken the law and the child is in danger. Okay? So the separation of families, let's get it straight, is not an intrinsic evil because sometimes it's necessary. And at the border, sometimes it's necessary.
But in this case, this isn't the situation. And I like, this is people, like, the milk is spilled. Like, these are people who came here. They could be here 7 years, 10 years. They came illegally, yes, but the children are suffering. Like, this should be a cry for both parties to come together and fix this situation. Donald Trump tried. He actually offered 1.5 million
the DACA recipients.
Correct, and it was turned down.
Right, it was
So
rejected
I'm
because
just saying,
you said it earlier, Joe Resinello. They can't give him a win.
they can't, and they
He
won't.
finishes this
They
immigration. He finishes any part of that wall before the election. He's crushing. He's already going to crush whoever it is. Okay, he's going to crush it. They couldn't give him that win. You're talking about the economy and the border being secured? Forget it. What's Elizabeth Warren going to run on?
But this is where they're not American. You know, we have to root for the president because it's in our interest. The country this is an example of such a broken process. We have turned into tribes. It's a warring tribal nation. And no one is willing. These are kids who are suffering. And you know something? Don't think the DNC cares. They don't care.
They don't care. These kids. What did Rahm Emanuel say, Joe? What did Rahm Emanuel say famously? Don't let a good crisis go to waste. It's a crisis at the border. They're using it for political reasons.
That's
Why
exactly
right.
right.
You know, when they tell you, when they show you that, it's like playing poker, and the guy you're playing poker against shows you his hand.
It's sad.
Or you just start collecting the pot. He showed you his hand. But you got to seize on that. Democrats know this problem could be solved. They can't give Trump a win. Why can't they give Trump a win? Because he'll get reelected. And if he gets reelected, why is that a problem for the left? Not just because of the economy and things like that they disagree with. Judges! Judges, and then it comes back to abortion and gay marriage that we started the conversation with. Judges! You can't give him a win because he's going to win again. Then you're going to get another Gorsuch. You know, he's appointed I heard the number, I think I'm right about this, 160 judges have been confirmed. Okay? In other words, in all the areas that he can appoint a judge, federal judges and all that, 160 judges. That has them quaking in their boots. Can you imagine with another 4 years? How many judges are you going to get? How many of these old crusty liberals are either going to die or retire? And then Trump's going to fill that position? Supreme Court? Ginsburg might not last another 5 years.
Breyer's 81.
Breyer's 81 too, okay? And the bottom line is, this is why they can't, you see how the politics, it all overlaps. But ultimately, there is a reason why they want to destroy Donald Trump, and it's got nothing to do with the fact that he grabbed Stormy Daniels' breasts. Okay, nothing. Has to do with judges, because that's how they get their agenda through.
And that's why I voted for Donald Trump, and that's why I will vote for him again.
Number one reason for voting for Donald Trump, if you are a conservative in America, much more than the economy, are judges. Because you could have a growing economy and a swamp of a culture, and all that extra money you're making is not doing you a damn bit of good if your culture's a mess, where your kids have to wake up every day and go to schools where every time they go to school, drugs are all legalized now, pornography is all over the place. Nobody's doing anything about it. Of course, the ACLU says you have a right to all this. Okay, I went to a state building. I was telling Joe before the show, having nothing to do with politics. My wife and I had to go to a state office yesterday, okay? Not going to mention which one it is because I'm always fear of being doxxed, okay? But nonetheless, we had business to do, and we walk into this office, no political reason whatsoever, it's just a state office, and right there on the wall, there's a rainbow flag and an equality flag. Why the political statement? Why did I need to see that? Is that not intimidation? Is that not telling people that walk through the door in New Jersey, if you're conservative, screw you? Because that's what that says to me, okay? You won't put an American flag up there, God forbid, because racist, evil, homophobic America. You're just a white nationalist. So you don't put an American flag up there. In fact, let Colin Kaepernick kneel in front of it and then burn it, okay, for all they care. But the equality flag, the marriage equality flag, and the rainbow flag are up there in the state office. That should tell you all you need to know about why we need sane judges. Because that's a political statement that if anybody made a beef and says, no, you're supposed to be neutral. You're the state. You're not supposed to be promoting one. This is an agency of the state of New Jersey. They're not supposed to be promoting one political cause over another. So why are they promoting that political cause? I felt personally intimidated by it. I did. I had to do business here, and I felt intimidated by it. It's like Big Brother staring at you in the form of these two flags. Anyway, my point is, you know, when it comes to all this underneath it, you're right. Let's get back to the original part of the segment. Cardinal Tobin, God bless you. Thank you for blessing these people. How about you join an abortion, the prayer warriors in front of an abortion clinic one of these days? Go there and bring, as a prince of the church, your blessing from Almighty God onto those people when they go and pray against the culture of death and the murders that go on every single day in the abortion mills. And
speak out against the politicians who are Catholic or receiving the Eucharist.
Right. And I will follow you, and Joe will too. But as it is right now, you're going to jump on a political bandwagon with immigration? Not following you. No. Not going to happen.
You're with the Frontline with Joe and Joe. We're here every Sunday at 8 o'clock. We got two more very, very beefy statements. So buckle up, get yourself a cup of coffee, and get ready.
Yeah, this ain't over.
Because we got two really deep ones to go into.
Let's say, hey, Chuck is joining in. Chuck, haven't seen you in a couple weeks, brother. Thanks for joining in. Rose is joining in. Artie joined us from Belleville. We love you, Artie. Artie, we're getting a backdrop soon, just to let you know. It's going to look real good. We're taking the production value of the Frontline with Joe and Joe to a whole new level. Artie, you'll never have to see the books again. We love it. Maria's joining us, a whole bunch of others. Joe Campbell, Jonathan Ross started a watch party with the Frontline with Joe and Joe on Facebook. So, and again, we're rocking and rolling, Joe, so let's keep going further into the breach.
Okay, this one is, I think, a very important one. It's been in the news for 4 years off and on, and it was recently in the news in San Francisco. There was a court hearing for Planned Parenthood where an employee admitted, is this mic on, to tracking baby body parts. Now, if you remember in 2015, there was a gentleman, David Daleiden, I always mispronounce his name, and Sandra Merritt. Basically, what he did was he went undercover. He made 11 tapes. There were undercover videos exposing Planned Parenthood in their involvement for selling dismembered baby body parts. Obviously, Planned Parenthood denied this straight up and down. Well,
they said they doctored the videos. It was all lies.
Well, this has gone on since 2015. They were in court this week, and they admitted to it. Now, by the way, David and Sandra are facing 14 counts of felony and 1 count of conspiracy currently, and their undercover video started a whole congressional hearing process against Planned Parenthood, because remember, we're federally supporting them with tax dollars. And by the way, since 2015, this has not stopped. And it's to the tune, I did some research, of $100 million a year. $100 million.
For what?
Basically, of taxpayer money that is supporting.
I thought it was closer to $500 million.
Well, this is contracts and grants that are used to sell baby body.
Just for the body parts.
So it's just $100 million. This has not stopped. And by the way, these are the people that exposed it, and they're facing 15 counts of federal crimes.
Now, remember, back in the day, whereas if you were an investigative journalist, remember Geraldo Rivera got famous. He got famous for exposing the whole thing with the mental institutions and everything. I think that was his big claim to fame back in the 70s. If you were a guy or a gal and you went into an oil company or a greedy insurance company,
or the tobacco
industry, and you did an undercover video, you'd be a hero. They would put you on a pedestal. They'd be giving you awards. Hollywood's making movies about you. Julia Roberts is going to star as you, okay? And you can pay millions of dollars for that because you blew the whistle on the real bad guys. The worst people in the world are the ones who kill babies in the womb. The worst ones. And Daleiden and Merritt are going to be facing 14 charges. This is why we need judges, because the same judge looks at that case and says, get the hell out of my courtroom. Get out of my courtroom. This is in California.
It actually gets worse, and this is the 9th District in California. And when this first went down in 2015, guess who was the Attorney General of California?
Can I guess? I didn't read the whole article. Can I guess? Kamala Harris.
And she used her political power to attack and to destroy these 2 people. To attack and to destroy them. She used the power of the state. So this is America. Right. This is the message. And also keep this in mind. Abortion used to say this. They used to say the pro-choice movement. They used to say, well, it's not a baby, it sells. When you're selling dismembered baby body parts, now openly in court, they admitted to it. They denied it in 2015. They didn't deny it now, right?
Because they're in court. Well, they don't want to hit with it. They can't. Again, even they know their limits. They can't perjure themselves. Okay, so they're in court and they had to admit it. But again, sorry to cut you off, but they know that they're in a friendly environment right now in California. In a courtroom in California, if you're on the left, you're in a friendly environment. That case is not staying there, my friends.
But what does it say about the process of abortion itself? You're basically saying, without saying, that yeah, I know I'm killing a human life. And I'm selling that body part for research, and I don't care. That's what you're saying.
Right.
That's what you're saying. And I'm going to tell you something else, which I found to be interesting in the article that I read. There was a time when the Fish and Wildlife Services Department in the United States were doing the same thing for bald eagles. They were harvesting, trafficking, and selling bald eagle body parts. Now, obviously, it's a protected species. And they got screwed for doing it.
Right.
Bald eagles are valued more than a human being. And this is where the environmental people make me laugh. They're so damn concerned. Now, I will say it again. I'm a steward of the environment. That my religion calls me to be that way. I must be a steward. But I don't care about bald eagles over a kid.
Nope.
Sorry. And I like animals. I'm not.
Put it like this. I don't want the eagle body parts to be trafficked in,
Absolutely.
but I don't want the baby body parts to be trafficked in.
But if I'm going to choose
one.
a cause, it's not going to be eagles over people.
Right.
Yet the environmentalists will. And that's why, to be honest with you, I cannot have a serious conversation with you.
But do they want? Let me ask you this, Joe.
I
You
can't.
said this before. You talk about. Just take it out of the context of the individual story for a second and just look at the larger picture. Do they really want dialogue? Obviously, they don't. They don't want to talk about these things. They don't want to have what they always say. We need to have a conversation. They don't want a conversation. They want you and the rest of us to listen to them and then let them do whatever it is they want to do. There is no compromise. We will never compromise on abortion. I will give some of them at least that much credit. They won't compromise on abortion. We won't either. Therefore, whoever's going to have the political will to do something about this eventually will win the day. But the abolitionist movement will probably be dead by then. We'll win the day. And future generations will look back on you, Christian Gillibrand, and the rest of your godforsaken party will look at you with disgust and disdain, the same way we look back on Nazis, because they killed people too, and they dehumanized people the same way, and worse so with you and the rest of you, because you dehumanized the most innocent, the most poor, as Joe always says, the most needy amongst us, okay? And the numbers are through the roof, hundreds of millions of babies. They will look back at people like that with disgust and disdain. Okay, talk about being on the wrong side of history. But they ultimately, Joe, my point is they don't want an argument. They lose the argument. I had this conversation with one of the pro-bikers for life down in front of Planned Parenthood when we protest down there, or we witness down there and pray the rosary. I had this conversation. They've lost every argument. Every argument that they've made is lost within a few sentences. Okay, the scientific argument, 70, I guess I think it's 80. We covered it a few weeks ago. The guy from University of Chicago. More than 80% of the world's biologists agree biologically life begins at conception. Politically, not Pete Buttigieg. He quoted the Bible. He really didn't really quote the Bible, but he misrepresented the Bible. It says life begins at breath.
Who says? Biologists don't say that.
Right, biologists
at the University of Chicago don't say that, Mayor Pete. You're manipulating and pandering to people. You're pandering to people. This is where people have to look past the lies, for crying out loud. It's just, people, like, we can't live on the surface. It's just sick.
They have people believing that, let's say, for example, if I hear one more liberal white person in Essex County complain that their taxes are too high, their property taxes are too high, and all these different things. If I hear one, I'm going to punch them in the face. Okay? You want to know why? Because if a conservative Republican politician in Essex County came in and started to rally the people of Essex County, okay, to fight against the state continually increasing property taxes and not doing anything to decrease them, or heaven forbid, eliminate them, or heaven forbid, giving parents who don't have kids in the public schools the ability to take off that portion of their property tax. But you know what? That conservative Republican who might make those proposals to those people who piss and moan about taxes being too high, if you say, well, you got that conservative Republican, he's willing to do something about your property taxes. Yeah, but he's against abortion and he's against marriage equality.
Why are people?
Then don't complain. Don't complain.
Why are people against abortion? Because it's
wait,
about sex. It's
wait,
about
you mean no. Why are people pro-choice?
Pro-abortion. I'm sorry.
Right.
My bad. Why are people pro-choice? Because they're for recreational sex.
Right.
This is the argument. It's about sex. It's about, I want to have sex and have an escape if something happens. And then people justify it in their head. And they say, I'm entitled to satisfy myself.
Right.
What about the child?
Right.
By the way, sex is made to have children within the marriage covenant. I know you're laughing at me,
Too bad.
But that's what it's for.
Right.
That's why the church tells us that sex should be within marriage. And by the way, we're critical of same-sex marriage. I'm equally as critical of heterosexual people living with each other outside of marriage.
Sure.
Equally as critical. And I would not want my daughter or my son to be involved in either.
Let me tell you something. I want to pick it up right there about sons and daughters, okay? In other words, why is it that, yes, it's mostly white, middle-class, liberal women in the suburbs, okay, who want to get their daughter on birth control at 14 or 15 years old, don't want the responsibility of telling their daughter, you keep your legs closed till you get married, okay? So it's not that they want...
And your sons,
right? No, I'm getting to them, all right? I'm getting to them, okay? So it's the mothers that want to make sure that their daughters are protected. Instead of telling their daughters and say, Mommy, I want to have sex. Go in your room and go read a book. You're not having sex till you get married. Get out of here, okay? Because that's what mothers...
Or you say, if you have sex and you have a child, we're having that child.
Right. You're gonna
We're having that child.
Right.
We don't kill children in this family.
That's right.
So know that there's and by the way, that teaches someone accountability.
Right.
That teaches someone accountability.
But who wants accountability when you're talking about being engaged or valuing more than anything else recreational sex?
Well, that's what it's all about.
Right.
It's all about recreational sex. It comes down to that.
Hold on. Let's get to the fathers for a second. Let's get to the fathers, because you were just about to say it. It was about recreation. It all comes down to that. But then the fathers too, okay, who don't act like men. I'm sorry. You'll probably beat the hell out of me. I'm not saying you're not tougher than me, but you don't act like men, because men, when problems arise in the family, like their sons want to go out and bang every girl in sight, and you tell them, just make sure you wear a condom, Johnny, okay? Or the mother encouraging the daughter to go on birth control so she can go out and do what she wants. All right, and all in the name of, again, it comes down to something we said a million times. Sexual liberation is a form of political control. I want to just make this one point. But here's the problem, okay? You've given you are controlled politically when it comes to taxes, when it comes to all the things that pull money out of your pocket on a daily basis, okay? Especially by the government, because of sexual liberation, because you place sexual liberation above everything else, that you won't take practical solutions and vote against the party of death. Why? Because you want what Joe just called, you want that lifestyle of recreational sex with no accountability.
And then parents who send their kids to school knowing damn well what they're going to do, and they just justify it as it's a rite of passage.
Right.
Are you crazy?
I had somebody say that in my house
Are you crazy?
last year.
It's a rite of passage, both for women and men. What rite of passage? How many lives are destroyed?
Right.
How much damage is done?
And who's there to, by the way, who's there to help these people
it's
when
just sickness.
I heard a story recently online where an author was writing. He wrote a number of books, and it was E. Michael Jones at Culture War magazine. But he was describing, long story short, a girl who emailed him, who had read his books and became familiar with his work, talking about the problems that we have in, let's say, when it comes to usury in America. He wrote another book called Sexual Libido Dominandi, Sexual Liberation as a Form of Political Control. This girl wrote him an email and says, "You described my life. You described my life." In other words, how the left destroyed the cities, because that's where Catholic power was, in Philadelphia and Chicago, Newark, certainly, in all these cities. They destroyed Catholic power. In other words, they dispersed everybody to the suburbs. This particular woman was writing to him because she grew up in Boston before the destruction of the cities, okay, where every house was Irish Catholic on every block, where you had a couple 100,000 Irish Catholics in a very concentrated area, okay? That whole thing was torpedoed. She moves to the suburbs. She's more isolated, okay? What does she do? She falls in with the world. She becomes alone. She looks to she looks to pornography, okay? Heavily influenced by that. Eventually has 3 abortions because she becomes sexually liberated. Again, this was something that was spoon-fed to her. That would not have been spoon-fed to her, let's say, in the protection of those neighborhoods, those, in this case, Irish Catholic neighborhoods, where you had a sense of right and wrong because it was instilled in you by your parents, but yes, also by the church. This woman was destroyed. Now, my question is, who's there to pick that woman up? She destroyed her life. She's in her 40s now, okay? 40s or early 50s. She destroyed her life by listening to everything that Joe and Joe talk about on the show that we rail against and we don't want to happen to people. Who's there to help her pick her life up?
No one.
After she listened to Madonna saying you have to be sexually liberated, how she got involved with drugs.
Madonna's a wreck.
Well,
she's a wreck.
But my point is, when you're being warned not to allow this to happen to yourself, Joe always says, you have to live with the consequences. You have to accept the responsibility and don't blame the rest of us. Whether it's Chicago, we started out the show talking about 35 people. Gee, it didn't hit 50 over Labor Day weekend, but it hit 35. This is the consequence of a godless society. This happens when there is a moral breakdown, when the natural law is not heeded and accepted and lived by, so you can live a fruitful and productive and, yes, dare I say, happy life. All right? This is what happens. And this is what the party of death is pushing on us all the time.
And by the way, a large percentage of America supports this. This is not a lunatic fringe. We're the lunatic fringe.
Oh, yeah, are you kidding me?
But my point is, this is 45% of America embraces this nonsense.
Right.
That is nothing short of destructive. You know, they say all this stuff. If we gave them their way, I don't give this country 50 years.
50,
I wouldn't give it 50 years. Look at California right now. California is the cities, they're a third world.
Joe, you grew up in the 1970s. I grew up in the 1970s, okay? In Newark, you don't have to look 50 years, and you don't have to look for a hypothetical example. In the city of Newark, again, another city where everybody dispersed, moved to the suburbs. It was predominantly the entire North Ward of Newark, the East Ward of Newark. It was primarily Italian Roman Catholic, okay, with others mixed in. But it was a Roman Catholic neighborhood, okay? And they just, you were what? You were born in what, 1970? And I'm born in 67, okay? It didn't take 50 years. 20 years of that. 20 years. By the time 1990 rolled around, Newark was finished. It was actually finished before then, but Newark was finished. Okay, and it has not come back. I've heard a million people say Newark's going to have a renaissance. Newark's not going to have a renaissance. My point is that it didn't. All the ideas we're talking about were implemented in this case in the city of Newark, and it didn't take 20 years to wreck that whole place, to wreck it, and it's still wrecked. 20 years, and so if you let them do this nationwide, okay, what do you think's going to happen? San Francisco's already going through it. Oh. All right. Los Angeles is already going through it. Jesse Romero did a show, the diabolical or the devil in the city of angels. Okay. He describes all this. Los Angeles is a wreck. Okay. Chicago is a wreck.
Baltimore.
Okay. Baltimore is a wreck.
New Jersey is a fiscal wreck.
Right. New York is a fiscal wreck. The only reason New Jersey is surviving as much as it does is because we're a suburb of New York and we have a lot of jobs in the northeast part of New Jersey, and you got money generated from Atlantic County, which is a Democrat county, down where Atlantic City is, okay? Trenton's a wreck, Camden's a wreck. The point is, all these ideas have already been implemented, and we have either what you're seeing on the West Coast, in Los Angeles, San Francisco, people defecating on the street, hypodermic needles, tent cities, all these things, 60, 70, 80,000 people living on the street. Okay, or you have what's happening in Chicago, which is the Wild Wild West. Why do we have to wait to see what will happen if this is all implemented nationwide? Why do you have to wait? You already are seeing it. Do you want this in your neighborhood?
Because people don't want to bend their knee. People don't want to be told what to do. So they want to be left to their own decisions. By the way, you're destroying yourself. Right? You're destroying yourself. And you don't have to look far. Like he just said, he just gave a litany. The proof is in the pudding.
That's right.
The proof is in the pudding.
But I would say two things. I would say a person who does this, two things. One thing is never think for one moment that people like us and many, many, millions of people like us would help you in a second pick up your life. Because we've had help in our lives, and we would help anybody. We're commanded to do so, and we want to do so.
Well, that's what this show is.
But I want to say one other thing. But the second part is, if you refuse that help, and if you refuse the truth, do not blame us. We did not put you in your position. We don't judge you, okay, because we don't want to be judged. But we did not put you in your position. You did because you listened to the lies. Those are my two proposals for you out there who think that all this is just wonderful, that the Democrats and the left are trying to ram down all of our throats. It's not. And stop blaming other people for the destruction that it causes.
And again, you're with the front line with Joe and Joe. We're here every Sunday at 8 o'clock. We have our last segment tonight. This one's a goodie. And definitely, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I think it's definitely noteworthy.
I made sure we did it last, so I digested all my food because unless as soon as he introduced, go ahead, Joe.
Well, this was this week on Wednesday on CNN. There was a climate town hall for the DNC candidates. Obviously, they're pandering to their base to discuss, and it went on for 7 hours. I want to just give you a couple highlights. Some of the statements made, frankly, were just pure and unadulterated insanity. But I'm just going to touch on some of the more salient topics, and I think we could have a good conversation. I'll start with Joe Biden, who's considered in some circles to be the moderate. Joe Biden basically said, and I want to say, I basically applaud you for your candid and honest response to this, but it's telling, and I want to tell you what he said. He basically said, enacting his climate change plan meant that some workers will be displaced, and some people in some industries will be displaced much more than others. Now, who is he talking about? Clearly, he's talking about the fossil fuel industry. He's talking about West Virginia. He's talking about Ohio, he's talking about Kentucky, he's talking about Louisiana,
talking about Pittsburgh,
the Gulf, he's talking about Texas. These are just Alaska, just to name a few. These are people who work in this industry, and he's basically saying that if we go along with this, he doesn't get into the specifics, I'm getting into the specifics, that people will be displaced. Who will be displaced? The middle class. So what's his solution? He says we can create electronic cars and we can get ahead of the curve and we could be the nation that produces electronic cars. Really, Joe? Really?
We already produce electronic cars. It's called Tesla. And you want to know what? They're great. I heard they're great.
Cost?
So I was going to say, like, the low end one is like $45,000, $50,000. I can't afford a $45,000 vehicle, number one. I gave my wife this example because I was actually talking to her about it. So, you know, if they ever really perfected that, I got no problem with electric cars. It's like we were talking about earlier before the show. We were having a little conversation while having a cup of espresso because we both need to wake up a little bit today. And he goes, I would gladly welcome the new technology when it's ready and affordable.
What happens when you're driving across the Pennsylvania Turnpike with your electric car and your electric starts going down and you need to get it plugged in to get?
Well, they want to have these charging stations like the same way they do gas stations. Okay, I can understand that too. But the thing is, I remember I was having this conversation with my wife. Was it last year we went to Montreal?
Yes, it was.
So I was having a conversation with my wife. That's a 500-mile trip, right? Or something like that.
87.
Yeah, really, all the way up, straight due north, okay? And I said to my wife, you know, this would be really good. But the problem is every few hours, let's say every 3 hours, we're going to have to pull over and we're going to have to fuel up, okay, for an hour. So I think it's a 5-hour trip. So a 5-hour trip turns into a 7-hour trip, okay? And it costs more money, and the vehicle costs more money. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because if the technology was there, Joe Biden, we would be doing it already. You want to know why we can prove that? We can prove that because the American economy in the last 15 years has grown, okay? And on top of that, our carbon emissions and the amount of pollution has decreased in America more than any other industrialized nation.
For 9 years in a row. And that's outside of the Paris Climate Accord, whatever the hell you want to call it.
So why is it
9 years in a row?
You think you're going to create new jobs when the market's not ready for these technologies yet? These technologies are still being developed. And yes, right now, Mr. Biden, Vice President, let me be respectful, Vice President Biden, we use oil and gas to heat our homes and to fuel our cars so we could go to work and we don't freeze to death in the wintertime. That's because it's cheap. We cannot afford the Green New Deal. We don't want the Green New Deal right now because of the price tag. And moreover, we don't want the Green New Deal because we don't want to give you, AOC, Nancy Pelosi, Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, and the rest of you any more of our power.
Let's get into the Green New Deal a little bit because he was asked about it point blank. Someone asked him specifically. They said,
this is Mayor Pete or Joe?
No, this is Joe Biden. Now, we all know that AOC, her Green New Deal is looking to ban all fossil fuels. Right. By the way, 99% of all cars and planes currently are fossil fuel driven. Just keep this in perspective. So he was asked point blank. He said, does that go too far? I think that's a pretty fair question.
Yeah.
He said, no, it's not. So he's obviously trying to walk a fine line. He's obviously lying to you because he knows it does, but he knows he can't say that. But let me give you some statistics on the Green New Deal. They'll be shocking. Currently, Americans use, get ready for this, 19.96 million barrels of petroleum per day. To replace that, the cost would be roughly $93 trillion.
Drop in the bucket. AOC, she says
93 trillion. This
Joe,
is
why
where
are you
they
over-
talk about these statements. They take you to be fools.
right. They think, or either that, or they don't think you know exactly how much $93 trillion. First of all, that amount of money doesn't exist. Okay, it doesn't exist. All the economies of the world do not total anywhere near $93 trillion, even if it is over 10 years or something like that. It's so far-fetched. Sometimes, what did Goebbels say? The bigger the lie, more people will believe it. So I guess they're going for the biggest lie. $93 trillion? Good. Where are you getting it from? What are you going to do, print it? You're going to tell the Federal Reserve start printing cash? Because you're going to have to do something like that. I don't know where you're getting all kinds of money. You don't even know where you're getting $3 trillion. You won't even give Donald Trump $6 billion to build a wall along the border. And you're talking about spending $93 trillion. Again, as Joe pointed out, not only is it some things are unrealistic to do. Okay.
Like flapping your wings and flying.
Right. See, and then there's some
That's
things.
how stupid this is.
That's impossible. If I go like this for an hour, all right, my fat ass is not getting off the floor. Okay, my feet are not going to. I'm not flying. It's impossible. $93 trillion is impossible. Okay, it is not borderline fairy tale. It is a fairy tale. I just don't. That's why I brought up Goebbels. How big of a lie do you want to tell? Make it $193 trillion. Might as well be. Go to the next level. Go to quadrillion, because the amount of money you're talking about. Really, what she's saying is the entire energy sector needs to be controlled by the federal government. Okay, that's what it
Are we
has
going to bring horses back? I mean, like
no, because evidently they either fart too much or they crap too much. Them and the cows. I guess are just doing that natural thing that animals do out in the field, and that's throwing too much into the atmosphere. What other atrocities?
Well, let's just go down the list just to throw some beauties, and again. Pure insanity.
Let's just quickly say hello to Suzanne out in Erie, Colorado. Suzanne, thanks for joining.
And Jonathan out in Canada joined us. What's happening, Jonathan? Good to see you. What's it called? Let's just go through some of the other statements that were made, just some highlights, because I think they were good. Beto O'Rourke, our communities will soon be uninhabitable. Really? They're uninhabitable? Okay. Mayor Pete, this one's a good one. The challenge of warming is on par with World War II. Let me just remind you about the carnage of World War II. There were 400,000 people in America that died and tens of millions of others across the globe. And you're comparing this to World War II?
Well, real quick though, but you know what he'll say. Well, if we don't do something about climate change, the consequences are going to be much more disastrous, and many more than 400,000 Americans and millions worldwide will die, because this will affect
Talk to India
all
and
of
China.
Us. Well, yeah, go
first.
That's always the point.
Talk to India and China.
Right.
We're under, like you said, 9 years in a row.
Our
America
pollution
is above par.
What do we always say? We're telling the truth, which means you have to tell the facts. You have to give the facts. Okay? The facts are, Joe just said it, our pollution levels have gone down every year for 9 years, okay, while our economy has grown.
Talk to India.
Do you get that? Do you get that? Okay? That means that as a product of our free market system, okay, we do more without government intervention to reduce our pollution than, let's say, Joe just said it 5 times. Go lecture China and India before you tell us. You're going to tell Joe he can't drive his Echo anymore? Because I'm going to be pissed off at you if you tell me he can't drive his Echo. He loves that car, but it burns gas. Okay? That's what it does. And the point is, it's just one big, it's all hyperbole. It's all just let's throw out as many outrageous examples as we can, and the more people will believe it. This is Mayor Pete. This is Mayor Pete Buttigieg can't even run. Anybody knows his track record in South Bend, knows he's been a disaster as the mayor. The media is not going to bring it out. And let's call it the way it is. They're not going to pick on Mayor Pete because Mayor Pete is gay. And he will turn around and he will fall back and say, you're attacking me because I'm gay, not because he was a disaster as the mayor of South Bend, Indiana.
So let's go to Bernie Sanders, what he said, and I think it's very telling. Bernie Sanders says, human population growth has more than doubled in the last 50 years, and the planet cannot sustain this growth. So what's his answer? His answer is this. He says, if I'm the president, I will fund more abortions in the developing world to stop this. So let's dissect that a little bit.
Please do.
Basically what you're saying is the world is growing from a population perspective. It's problematic. So I'm going to kill Africans and Asians who are poor to resolve that issue. And I'm going to use U.S. taxpayer dollars to do so.
Is that not racist, Joe?
Is that not human?
Is
that not human?
But is that not a racist statement that he made?
Because, by the way, the developing nations, that is Asia and that is Africa.
Right.
And that is not people of, you know, the white Anglo-Saxon bad guy.
Right. It's always the same thing. It's always the nefarious white liberal left that has no problem when it comes to population control, as long as the population that's being controlled are undesirables. And undesirables in their mind goes back to Margaret Sanger. Okay.
Perfect.
Goes back to Margaret Sanger.
Example.
Are in Margaret Sanger, the way she calls it, she said the Negro population. Bernie Sanders calls it the population in the developing nations. Bernie, they're not white like you. Okay.
And they're not rich.
And they're not rich like you. Okay. So, but you want them to kill their babies so that you can live a better life, so that you can keep flying on your private jet and live in your 3 homes, which I'm sure are all heated with fossil fuels in the wintertime.
And your Suburbans that you get drived in your what's it called, cavalcade throughout like DC. All of them drive.
You know what he is? He's a typical, Bernie Sanders is the typical old style Soviet Union party apparatchik. In other words, this is what the party does. Bernie, so let's call it the way it is. Bernie Sanders is a party man, okay? And these young people better stop listening to him. The party man says that all those people out there that disagree with our revolution have a mental illness, the same way Deborah Messing said that 30% of African Americans who voted for who are supporting Donald Trump are mentally ill. He's a party man. He gets to do what he wants. You do not dare to ask him for the things that you want. So Bernie gets to drive in that SUV. You don't. Joe can't drive his Echo, which is completely economically sound, I think.
4-cylinder.
All right, 4-cylinder engine. Joe can't drive his Echo, but Bernie could go on his private jets. He could live in his 3 homes, which I'm sure are bigger than our homes.
Much.
Okay. So that's what he is. This is leftist cosmopolitan elitism at its, let's not even call it its best. It's
at its worst.
At its worst. And people listen to this decrepit old communist as though he's got something to say. Once in a while, he diagnoses a problem correctly, but his solution is always way, way, way.
Why are people listening to him? Because they don't have hope. People have lost hope. They've given up God. And when you give up God, their new sugar daddy is the state.
Right.
Because they don't see hope. A lot of these young people are overburdened in debt. They don't see a positive job coming their way, and they don't believe in God. So what do they believe in? Crazy Bernie Sanders in the state, as if they're going to help them.
Well, they think that what they're selling them is you remember there's obviously an overall picture of what the left is really all about. Okay. At the end of the day, all conservatives know this, okay? The left is about control, pure and simple. They want power. They want power for power's sake. They don't care how they get it. How they've decided is the best way to achieve that political control is by telling people, convincing people that the old ways are no good, okay? Old morality is no good, okay? Old notions of right and wrong are no good. What you really want is, I know that this sounds tongue-in-cheek, but it's not meant to be, okay? What you really want is sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We will provide it for you. That's what the left says. That's what Bernie Sanders says. You think I'm crazy? Okay. The culture they promote is completely corrupt. When I say rock and roll, I mean Hollywood, the music industry, and everything else. Every leftist is in favor of drug legalization. They're not going to stop with marijuana. They're going to continue right down the road until we're all able to stupefy ourselves with anything we want to, okay?
Legally.
And it will be legal, okay? And of course, sexual liberation, which starts with contraception and works its way right on through abortion and everything else, gay marriage, homosexuality, the whole 9 yards. That is what they convince you that you want, because they've convinced you that God does not exist. Therefore, you need to be happy, and you will be happy if you listen to us. Don't listen to those Catholics. Don't listen to those Orthodox Jews who tell you about the 10 Commandments. Don't listen to those conservative evangelical Christians. Don't listen to anybody. God does not exist. We will replace God because I'm Senator Sanders. I'm as old as God anyway. All right. That's what he tried to convince you of, and they're going to give you everything you want. What do you have to give them in return? You just have to give them.
You give them your happiness.
You give them your well, they think that they're going to receive happiness.
You're not going to be
but
happy.
Like what did you tell you about before?
Doing that. I'm sorry.
When you go to Bernie Sanders and you say, the things you told me destroyed my life, he's going to say, he's going to do what the devil does. He's going to say, I didn't force you to do it. All I did was make an argument. You listened. You were stupid enough to listen. What movie was it? I forgot. I was going to bring up a movie quote that was along those same lines anyway. But that's the whole point. The voices in America right now who are sounding the warning are the people that need to be listened to. Not that we agree with them on everything, and not that they agree with us on everything, but on certain fundamentals, particularly the evil that is embodied in the left, and particularly the Democrat Party in America, okay, needs to be shouted from the rooftops. They're offering the American people, particularly young people, a bill of goods. Okay, that bill of goods is meant to control you, and if it destroys your life,
and it will destroy your life. I got news for you. Look outside. I said this is the last show. How we doing? How we doing? In plain English.
Some of us are doing okay. No. I know what you're saying. Look
around. Just look around. How many people are happy? How many people are thriving? Who've basically bought into this culture? I'll tell you what, I get in elevators sometimes, I look at faces of the quote-unquote successful people. They're miserable.
Miserable, as they say.
They're miserable. Miserable people. Yeah. They've arrived. They're miserable. They bought all this nonsense. And it's nonsense.
Right.
We've gone backwards.
Because materialism ultimately, whether it's right-wing materialism, or it's left-wing materialism, whether it's Marxism, or whether it's, let's say, Freud would say, complete and unchecked laissez-faire capitalism, okay? Certainly not as bad as communism, but not altogether desirable either, okay? We're a bit more balanced than that. Materialism is a failure, because all materialism is a way to try, as we said earlier in the conversation, to replace God with something else. The material is all that matters, okay? That's what moves history, okay, along those lines. Marx basically, taking from Hegel, and Marx basically said that history is moved. It's a materialism. That's the dialectical movement of history. Is material. It's not spiritual. Okay. Whereas Hegel tried to make it seem, or to say that the movement was more spiritual. The spirit, okay, moves history. Marx brings it down to the material. Material is all wrong. The material worldview, the materialist worldview, is wrong. We need to get back to first principles in this country.
I would agree.
We need to get back to first principles, metaphysics, okay? That's what we need to do. We need to get back to sound morality and moral teaching, not just from the church. We pick on the church. We're Roman Catholics, we can, okay? But also from the Protestants, from the Jews. We have to, at least we're in a common fight here against a common enemy. We can have our arguments later, and those arguments are valid, and they need to be had. Right now, we need to fight against this common enemy because they'll destroy us all. And we need a return to this. We need a return to, like we said, sound moral principles being applied, yes, to our society, to our families, to our government, to all of it.
And where the culture goes, there goes the society.
That's right.
And the politics follows. The culture is the driving factor.
Well, yeah. I mean, if we can influence the culture, Elizabeth Warren or the rest of them wouldn't stand a chance to become president of the United States. They would say now, and again, even amongst people who consider themselves pro-choice, which obviously Joe and I vehemently disagree with you, okay? But even a lot of those people say, this woman thinks a baby can be killed the day before they're born. Or Pete Buttigieg or Bernie Sanders. Pete Buttigieg said, we'll leave it to the woman to decide when life begins. Excuse me? Excuse me? That's the best you could do, Mayor Pete? In other words, we'll leave it to the woman? Beto O'Rourke, I hate to even mention that dude's name. He's still being mentioned. He holds 0 in New Hampshire.
Well, because he's a plant. They love him. Tom Perez loves that
Does
guy.
he realize?
Well, I think same with Mayor Pete. They're just DNC.
But what is all this? Like he keeps going like this, like he's straining with every sentence. I almost feel bad for myself.
Maybe he's constipated.
I don't know. Maybe he is.
No, but I think they take that the whole Obama, like when Obama tried to like mimic MLK, like he would talk like Martin Luther King.
Okay, yeah.
And I think they're trying to mimic like when he would be like, the American people need leadership. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so they're trying to do that.
So,
I will say this. We'll end on this note. We'll end on this note. I disagree with Bill Clinton probably on everything. Masterful politician, charismatic speaker. I disagree with Obama on everything, okay? Masterful politician, terrific public speaker, okay? None of these people hold a candle to Bill Clinton or Barack Obama in that department.
Oh, no.
None of them.
That's why they're going to lose.
That's why at least Trump doesn't pretend. Trump doesn't pretend to be an intellectual. He says we got a problem with the border. We got rapists and murderers coming across. We got to keep them out. We got to build a border wall. He just says it, okay? Or if he talks about defunding Planned Parenthood, he says what they do is evil. They shouldn't get federal dollars. Like he just comes out and says it. So I'm not going to even say that Donald Trump does what Clinton and Obama did. But these people, like I said, they try to pretend they could be as eloquent or give as good a speech. I mean, can you imagine? It's never going to happen. But can you imagine Beto O'Rourke getting the Democratic nomination and having to give his acceptance speech? It would be a nightmare. All the Democrats would look and say, "Oh my God, what did we do? What did we do?"
Well, they love him.
They listen.
The party loves him.
They're keeping him on that stage. I don't know why. Again, we'll end it on this. The warnings are all out there. Frontline with Joe and Joe is simply putting out all the stories that we're pinpointing. Again, we can't talk about it all because there's even a lot more than this. But we could get into it. We could tell you why these people are wrong, why they're liars, why they're hypocrites, and we back it up. Okay, we give you facts. All right, we're not just making it up. And if you disagree, comment in. Our videos are up there all week. Anybody can. We get notifications when we get comments, and we respond to them in kind. Okay. Point is, especially all you young people out there, start heeding the warnings of those who have seen this in their lives, who have lived through it, who've seen the destruction of their hometown. Okay, due to these policies, which is a damn shame because Newark used to be a great city. Okay, it really did. My father used to tell me, and I'm sure your parents told you the same thing. Newark used to be a great city. This is the result of these current crop of Democrats and their ideas and what they're going to try to do. In fact, they're going to a whole new level. They're going to a level that you can't even imagine. So if you don't want to have your life controlled, if you don't want the government telling you what to do, if you want to raise your kids the way you want, and you don't want interference from the government or the state, I think maybe you should start heeding the warnings. We're here for you. We're going to be here, what, Joe? Every week? Every week at 8 o'clock. You can tune in. I hope you do. And please tell a friend. Please do. And we have, hopefully, in the near future, we're going to do outside of our normal show, our regular show at 8 o'clock on Sunday night. We have a couple interviews scheduled. We'll announce those in the near future, a couple that we're very excited about. And we're going to start moving along those lines and bringing people in that are more expert in some of these things than we are, or just have our guys exactly like us and have something to say, okay? And we're going to bring that to you. We're going to post all our videos on our Facebook page. It's Frontline with Joe and Joe. Also on HolyFaith Media on YouTube. Jonathan Ross is handling that for us. And we're just going to keep rocking and rolling. We're going to keep telling the truth. We're going to stay in that breach. And remember, these conversations that we're having, these conversations are your conversations. And Joe? They're going on everywhere, my friend. Thank you very much for tuning in, and please join us next week at 8 o'clock. And please share our videos with your friends. Share our videos as much as you can, and let's keep the word going out. Be well. Peace.